All right. Well, there's lots to get into, but I've been starting recently with the question: what is your why for competing in HYROX or all the other sports that you do? What's your why behind that?
Oh, that's a big question. The biggest why is I really believe that I was made to be a certain way, that I was created to be a certain way, and I was given life challenges and circumstances from a very young age to guide me into the athlete and also the man that I am today. And I think a huge reason is to inspire people to ask more of themselves and to ask for more out of life. And then also to get people to think about life a little differently. I think it's really easy in the fitness space to become someone who, keeps their head down and goes to the gym and then goes for their run and then goes to work and then goes home. And there's like this glamorized concept of the grind, which I really, really love some parts of that. I think it's really, really good to live a quiet life where you just, you wake up, you go to work and you work out and you spend time with family and that's pretty much it. But I think life is also more than that. I think we were blessed with the ability to have fun in a very wide variety of ways and also to more importantly help others. Um, I think there's this toxic culture in the world today where it's glamorized like everything is about me. Like I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to make me better. I'm going to heal myself so then I can reach out to other people or I'm going to worry about just me. I'm going to stay focused on me and there's so much me. Um and I understand the concept that you can't pour from an empty cup, but I also think that there's a larger, or at least for me as a Christian, there's a much larger ideology of everything is not about me. Um, I can get stuck in that sometimes, but everything should not be about me. And so that includes racing. Like the reason I race is because I love it. And I do believe that God gifted me that ability and made me a certain way. And also like gave me a certain upbringing so that I could be good at it and crafted me in that way. But he also wants me to glorify him in that. And he wants me to reach out to others and help others in that, whether that's through encouragement or training or inspiration or just kind words to people at events like that. That's the overarching concept because uh, I've hung on to this quote by Tommy Rivs for a few years now. He's an ultra runner that he got some sort of sickness and lost most of his lung capacity and wasn't able to really do anything for a long time. And he wrote a book, and I listened to a podcast that he was on, and one of the things that stood out to me out of every podcast that I've ever listened to is he said, "If I die and all people can say about me is he was fast, what a pointless existence that was." And it spoke to me because my favorite thing, which I said in the interview with you at HYROX Amsterdam, is like I love going fast. It doesn't matter if it's speed flying or like my work as a fireman for a few years. I loved that career because it was about going fast. But I get caught up in that mindset of like it's about me. It's about me going fast. It's like what can I do to go faster? And I often forget that it's not just about me and that if that's all my friends and family can say about me or people in the sport of HYROX can say about me is like, oh, it's a bummer he went, but man, he was fast. Like that's gonna suck. Like that's my existence is like, wow, that guy was so good at HYROX. He was so fast. And just keeping that in perspective, especially over the last few months, where I haven't been able to run fast at all. Um, that has been something that's been comforting is like I should be a lot more than just going fast. So I know that's a long-winded answer to what you asked, but there's a lot of facets to that. But I think my biggest why is like I want to show young men that there are other options, compared to what the world teaches us. We're like, basically have fun in your younger years, party, smoke, drink, whatever. And then as you get older, kind of sober up and get a stable job, work your 9 to 5, and, like maybe get a house, a wife, kids, and a dog. Um, and that's a cool existence for some people, but I also really want to inspire other people that there's so much more to life. And like, if you work your butt off when you're young, you can enjoy those later parts of life a lot more. So yeah, just giving people different concepts to live by is a huge part of my why.
Okay. All right, great, love it. So sort of touched on it then, and not everyone will have seen HYROX Amsterdam interviews afterwards, and we didn't even necessarily talk in that live stream about what's been going on in your life since you were last on this podcast in November last year. You just finished second in Chicago in HYROX, 55 minutes. I think at the time that made you the third fastest man ever. So we're almost a year later. What's been happening in the last year? Can you sort of try and summarize that for us?
Yeah. Right after we did that podcast in November, I had another couple of great races. I almost won all 3 DECA world titles. I still have the world records in all 3, but I got second in the DECA strong on the last day. So I didn't hit the triple crown, but I was still super proud of that weekend. Kevin Gregory crushed it. He's a hybrid athlete from the States that focuses on DECAs specifically, especially the strong. And he's fast, especially on the bike. But yeah, I had a great weekend there, and then ended up going to Nigeria for a bit for a mission trip after a Spartan race in Abu Dhabi. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to really focus on this Tough Mudder in Saudi Arabia, because like the prize money was like 80K to the winner and like 30K to second, and 15 to third or something. And so it was the biggest prize money purse I've ever gone for. So I started training a lot for that. And I got bronchitis in the lead up a couple weeks before, and had some also like tore ligament in my ankle training as well. And so kind of took a small step back, tried to go and race, but it didn't go well. But because I was over there in the Middle East, I got offered a job with the Dubai police force, and I ended up taking it. So I moved over there completely. And a big reason why was because, especially after missing out on the Saudi Arabia race, or not racing well because I had to pull out because of breathing problems, and also some soft tissue stuff. I was like, you know what, I've never focused on HYROX. I've always, dabbled in a bunch of things, but what if I threw in a solid 4 or 5 months before Worlds and just only trained for HYROX? And the Dubai police force is really well funded. They have a great training facility. They have like a hyperbaric chamber, masseuse, like all this stuff. And the job was really good. And so I knew that I could train there, and really prepare for HYROX. So I went all in, and started to get really strong and really fast. And then in March, after I had been there a little less than a month, I had a lifetime PR of my 5x1 mile workout. 2 days before this happened, I was on an easy bike ride in the desert. Absolutely, like just high on life. Like everything was working out. I was getting so fast. I was super strong, and like I was making really good money. So I was stoked, and just really enjoying it there. And then I was about an hour into the ride. I was planning on riding 3 or 4 hours. I just bought a new bike, actually. So it was new bike day, or I was loaned a new bike. And so whenever you get a new bike, you just want to go rip around on it. So I was just doing like zone 2, really chill. And I noticed my throat started to feel weird, but I just ignored it for about 10, 20 minutes. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And then it started to like close off. and I couldn't take a deep breath without coughing at all. Um, so I just kept riding because I was in the middle of the desert, and I decided to just slow down and keep slowing down and keep slowing down. And I knew it wasn't related to my heart because my heart rate was coming down with my effort. So like I was barely even above 100 beats per minute. Like I had dropped, so but I still couldn't breathe, and I was cruising. I usually when I ride, I'm at like 20 to 25 miles an hour in zone 2 on something flat on a road bike, and then uh which I think is like 40k per hour, 35 to 40k per hour. Because it's like a really nice road bike. I can cruise pretty quick on it. And by the time I stopped, like I wasn't able to pedal more than 15 kilometers an hour, 10 to 15, and I still couldn't breathe. So I ended up just uh, calling my someone to come pick me up and laying in the grass and just like couldn't breathe for about an hour. I knew I wasn't dying because I've worked fire and EMS for about 4 years, and that's what I did before I became a full-time coach. And so I've seen a lot of people having respiratory problems, and I knew that I knew it wasn't an anxiety attack. I knew it wasn't a panic attack. And I also knew that it was like something wrong with my throat and possibly my lungs, because it was like painful up in my chest and then into my trachea, but not in my heart. So, which often it can be misdiagnosed, like a breathing problem could actually be a heart problem. But my heart was acting totally normal. But long story short, I ended up going to the ER there. I knew I wasn't dying, so I didn't want to go. But when the Dubai police found out, they wanted to, like, obviously they don't want an employee dying while they're there, especially in the early portion. So they took me to the ER. They did like a full workup on me and said it was probably just asthma, which I kind of had a weird feeling about because it doesn't make sense that I would just all of a sudden get asthma one day, and that it would be two days after I had the best workout of my life, best running workout of my life, I should say. Um, and so uh, I spent about literally 2 hours after I got out of the ER, or 1 hour later, I took the inhaler and went for a run to see if it would work. And which I know is kind of dumb to some people to go try and run 2 hours after you get out of the ER, but I was getting ready for HYROX Worlds, and I was like, I only have 3 months. I got to hurry up. And or at that time, I think I was only 10 weeks out, so I had 2.5 months, and yeah, it didn't work. So I ended up spending about a week and a half more there, just trying to recover and get better. I didn't go outside because the air pollution was bad, and I thought it might be that. So I literally stayed in my hotel and stayed inside the gym and didn't go outside as much as possible. And that didn't help. So I booked, again, I'm in panic mode at this point. I'm like, I'm losing all my fitness. I'm not going to win HYROX Worlds if I'm like this. And I really knew like I had a really good chance of winning with my fitness at that time. And so I moved back to the States, and I thought maybe the cleaner air would help, and it didn't. So then I started reaching out to doctors and like anyone that would take me. But part of our problem here is I knew I needed a specialist, and I don't have a primary care provider because I never am unhealthy. Like I never go to the hospital. So I basically was reaching out to friends to see if someone could to get me in to see somebody without a general practitioner referral. And so but then I had to go like outside of my insurance, but I was like, you know what, I can afford it if I like win HYROX Worlds, which wasn't the smartest move. But I was just desperate because I knew what I was packing. Like I knew that I had major fitness. And so I was just trying to hurry up. But to get in to see a specialist takes a long time. So it took until like the beginning of May. So it took almost an entire month to get in to see an allergy specialist. They didn't find anything. It took almost 2 or 3 more weeks to get in to see a pulmonologist. They didn't find anything. So then I talked to 2 or 3 more pulmonologists, and they all had their own ideas, but none of it worked. I tried a couple different medications, a couple different inhalers, and they all kept saying like my VO2 max was like 15 points lower than normal, but it's still really good compared to the average person. So they all just kept telling me the same thing, like, hey, we usually work with old people. Your VO2 max is great. And that's where I would lose them. It's like, your VO2 max is 58. Like, that's great. You should be happy with that. And I'm like, yeah, but it used to be like 78. It used to be up there. Like 75 to 78 is usually where I chill. Um, so yeah, I just eventually I went all the way to Colorado for another specialty hospital to see if I had vocal cord disorder. Um, and they didn't find anything the first day, but then the second day when I didn't have a camera down my throat, then they thought they heard it. So then they went back and forth between a couple different diagnoses. Um, Again, they didn't actually find what happened or what was happening. They could just hear it. They couldn't really see it. So they think it was deeper than my vocal cords. So then they were like, well, you probably have, what they think is happening is the back of my trachea collapses into the front of it, because the wall is too weak in the back, and it's eventually just gotten too weak. And so there's not a lot they can do besides give me some breathing exercises or put a stent in. But everything I've read about putting a stent in says like you get pneumonia a couple times a year because it gets infected so easy. And I don't want that. So I'm trying the breathing exercises route, but it's been like 2 or 3 months of that now. And like yesterday on my run and today, for instance, like I can feel it the whole time. Like it feels like I'm breathing through a straw. And some days are better than others, but it's clearly something still wrong. So I think I'm gonna, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of options I could go with, and I've spent so much money on our medical system here, and had like insurance problems. So I'm really just I'm kind of to the point where I'm just like, you know what, I'm just gonna train as hard as I can. And there was a phase in July where I was passing out a lot, or I should say, feeling like I was going to pass out a lot. I only like fell down a couple times. And so I've kind of just decided I'm just going to train how I can, the best way I can. And then I think on race day, it seems to have gotten better to the point where like maybe the adrenaline or the caffeine that I take or something like neurologically blocks out uh, the perception of discomfort and pain and suffocation. That, or honestly, I just think it's a miracle what happened in Amsterdam, because like I haven't been training that much. I've been doing what I can, but it's like half of normal, if that. So yeah, that's kind of been the last year. It's been interesting for sure.
Wow. Wow. And yeah, and then hearing that story and then putting that in the context of what you did in Amsterdam is amazing. And like I know you messaged me before the race. I'll read it out, but it was like it was like you weren't expecting to do well in the race at all, where you said I have some days where I'm 90% if it's good and the rest is at 70 to 80% or worse breathing capacity of who you used to be. Honestly, I'm showing up to this race because I gave up my world spot, and this time I want to take this spot to say goodbye for a while. I'm expecting it to be a very rough race, but maybe I'll get lucky with good breathing. So like knowing that was your expectations, and then seeing you like cruising, enjoying yourself on those runs, absolutely flying. It was like, is this the same guy that messaged me earlier and said this was going to be a rough race? Was it just you just think it was luck, like, or just a lucky hour that you had where it was good?
Uh, to be honest, like I don't really believe in luck, or I don't believe in luck. But like it was strange during the warm up, because my girlfriend came to that race. The reason I went to that race was one, uh, because I told God before I did a deca mile like a month and a half ago or something. I was like, I was really toying with the idea of going, and my girlfriend had never seen me race, and I wanted to, like, she met me when I got back from Dubai. And so she, like, it's hard to explain to somebody that you used to be more. Like every bike ride I'd go on where she'd see me just like wheezing, or um or like sorry, um like climbing even. There were a couple times that we were climbing, which is like a super easy activity minus the grip strength. Um, and like I would just get weak and like uh, feel like I was gonna pass out. Not breathing hard or anything, just like uh, my O2 saturation would drop really low. Like I'd go below 90 and I would just feel like really weak, and like something was wrong. And so instead of like pushing to the point where I would pass out, like I'd have to communicate like, hey, I'm not feeling so good. Like I don't feel good belaying you. And like lead climbing is not a time to mess around. Because it's not like top roping where if you fall, like the rope is going to catch you within a foot. With lead climbing, when you're climbing above the point that you're clipped into, you fall twice as far. And so if the next bolt is 15 feet up, you fall 30 feet. And so it's just not a time to mess around. So I would just have to tell her like, hey, I don't think it's a good idea for me to be climbing with you right now, and we'd have to go back. So um really I was thinking a couple months out from Amsterdam, I was like, I knew how she kind of wanted to see this piece of me that she had never seen before, and that I would talk about. And so I started to think about it, because before that it was like not an option. In my mind I was like, I'm not showing up to Amsterdam to get destroyed by a bunch of guys. um like I don't enjoy, if I felt like I was at my potential and I got destroyed, it's different than feeling like you're super slow compared to normal and watching everyone run by you and
Mm.
knowing that you can run faster. Because for like 6 months prior to that, I spent most days like running, like still trying to run, but knowing I could run faster, but like something was wrong. And it's just been like that this whole time. And I've had maybe in the last 7 months, I've had maybe 5 or 6 good workouts where I felt like I was good. And one of them was that Deca Mile where I was trying to decide if I should go to Amsterdam or not. And I was hanging out with my buddy Grayson, a really good friend of mine in Boise. He was hosting it actually. And he was encouraging me, and his dad was encouraging me. And I was just like, you know what? God, if I get below a 17:30, which my personal best at the time was like 16:19, but no one else has ever been close. Um, and like I think the next fastest time prior to that was like a 16 59 or something. So it was like 40 seconds faster than anyone else had run it. And so I was like, you know what, God, if I do a 17:30, which is like 10% slower than normal, I'll go to Amsterdam, and like I'll uh like I kind of wanted, I don't want to share too much about my personal life, but basically there were some other factors where like I wanted to encourage someone else in going to Amsterdam as well. Um, and so I was like, you know what? I don't think I'll be absolutely humiliated if I'm still within the realm of like 10% off. So I I decided to race it, and I did. The course I think was a little short, to be honest. Um, but I did like a barely under 16 minutes, which was just like so, and I felt good. Um, and I had like the week before that, I had felt good in one workout. So I was starting to get some hope. Um, so I decided to go, bought the plane tickets, but then I realized um, that it wasn't just going to be up from there. And I kind of crashed again and I started getting worse again. And yeah, so then in my mind, I was like, you know what? Just be grateful that you're here. At least the Elite 15 race will have a lot of hype. It'll be fun. It'll be fun for my girlfriend to watch and like kind of see who I literally told her right before the race. I was like, I'm really glad you get to see who I used to be. Because in my mind, I'm like, this is like, I'm going to get smashed. I told her like 2 hours before the race, before I went to go warm up, and she was encouraging me and everything. And then I was just like, hey, like if I get lapped today, just know that's not normal. I haven't ever been lapped before in a HYROX. Because like in my mind, I'm like, don't remember me this way. Like this is probably not going to go well. Don't like think this is my normal. I'm literally telling her that, and she's like, no, don't worry about it. And she was right. She was like, I think it's going to go better than you think it will be, or than you think it will. But yeah, like I was expecting zero, to the point where I was telling like my parents, my siblings that were gonna watch, and then her, just like, this is me retiring. Like, don't think of it as like, don't remember me this way. Like, um, and then during the warm up, I felt like crap. I could feel it, and I was like, you know what? Doesn't matter. I did some journaling with myself before the race, and I was just like praying so much, just like asking God to show me what to do, and then if it was like His will, like I know that He can. I do believe I'm created, and so if He's has that power over me, then He can give me a good day if He wants, because I've had good days before. Um, and so I was just praying for that, if that was His will. And then honestly, just the first run did not feel good, especially since everyone went out so hot. But when I was on the ski erg, I don't know what it was, but I was definitely praying some on the ski erg too. And like on the ski erg, I just started to feel good. And that's why on the second run, like I was like 15 seconds down on Alex, and by the second time around, I had already passed him, because I was just like, I haven't run this fast in 7 months. Like I literally haven't touched that. And I felt good. And then I slowed down to wait for everybody, because I was like, I'm probably overdoing it. Like I felt like it didn't feel hard, but I realized like I'm running too fast. But I was just so excited to feel that way again. Um, and then on the rower, I felt it a little bit. Or sorry, after the sled push and on the sled push, I think because it's tense, I felt it a little bit. And then I felt it a tiny bit on the rower and a tiny bit on farmer's carry. But the rest was like, if I didn't push beyond my threshold pace on the runs, I could control it. And it was the best I felt in easily in 7 months. So it was like a straight up miracle. I have no other words to describe it. So yeah, it was crazy.
Amazing. Do you have? Is there any sort of underlying fear now when you're exercising? Is it you're waiting
Oh
for it
yeah.
to go, and does that hold you back mentally at all? Do you think, or not?
Some days it does. When it first started happening, when I like moved back home again, um, because I was getting not like the tingly, lightheaded, and dizzy, like when, for instance, when you have an anxiety or a panic attack, And people with panic attacks are like, and they're breathing so quickly, they're breathing off all their CO2, and then they get lightheaded and their fingers start to tingle and everything. Um, like to avoid that, to make sure it wasn't something like that, I would do back pressure breathing, which is where like you breathe through your lips really small, like, so then you're not really releasing CO2 as much. Um, but still, I would just get like woozy and lightheaded and like trip, um, or sometimes like I would just be, I would start my run and like 400 meters into the run, I would just feel like such garbage and like my legs wouldn't move. That was the other thing. When it first started, it was like, it wasn't just my respiration. It was like my legs were incapable of going faster. Like I couldn't run faster. I kid you not, than like 6 minute per mile, or sorry, 6 minute per K. So like 9 to 10 minutes per mile some days. Like that was my max some days. Um, and so I would just turn around and go home, or I'd like sit on a rock and contemplate my life. I literally would just like give up, sit down and be like, I don't know what to do today. And I'm not super proud of those days where I gave up and just went home. Cause it happened probably like 10 times in that first 2 months, where I would like, I was so depressed and just like felt felt like a shell of who I was. Cause I literally, I don't know how to explain this to people who maybe don't feel this way, but when you feel like you're a little bit superhuman, like you've worked to a point where your body can just handle so much, you're like, it's so euphoric because you're like, oh, I'm going to go run a half marathon in like 110. Cool. I'm going to go do that. Or, but then on the same day, you can go and squat like 300 4x4 or something. Like it makes you feel really, uh, like really different and unique. And then when that was stripped from me, or taken away, I should say, it definitely like it was a blow mentally.
Mm.
Because
And
again, like,
also, sorry,
yeah,
also like sport is clearly a major part of your life as well, isn't it? And like being outside and doing all of the sports,
yeah,
it's a big part of who you are as well, on top of being superhuman in a way.
yeah. Like I love doing speed flying. So I love like hiking or running up a mountain and then flying off. I love rock climbing. Like I love mountain biking. I love trail running, especially techie trails. So it's ironic that I'm like, I always tell people you don't have to only practice HYROX to be good at HYROX, because I don't. It's more about working on your engine, and then I'll touch on some speed every week, or I'll go to the gym like once a week and I do a lot of sandbag work. Because typically I live out of a van. Like to help with the medical bills and stuff, I actually rent out my house right now and I live out of a van. And so lots of the time, like if I'm in the middle of the woods, I just use sandbags for working out. Um, but it's like it was hard for me for a long time to like find joy in those things, because one of the most core things about me is I love going fast.
Mhm.
Um, and so like it's something my mom jokes about. It's like when she asks me if I'll like something, she'll be like, "Oh, this is like a fast thing. You'll probably like it." Like if it's a sport that requires a lot of speed or like a lot of adrenaline because it's a really fast thing, she's like, "Oh, you'll like this sport." Um, and so it's like a joke, but when I can't do anything fast outside, it's it definitely made me feel like nothing was really worth it anymore,
Mm.
uh, which was hard. And I still feel that way some days. Like today, running, I had to just like look at the mountains and look at like the fresh rain, and I actually just had a random thought pop into my head today, about how the sun is always there, but sometimes the clouds come in and cover it just to give you some water so you can grow. And I really liked that. It was just
Mm.
like a thought that I had today. And then, the clouds disappear and the sun comes out again and you have a good HYROX race, right? Or life goes better. But sometimes you got to have those clouds roll in to give you a little bit of water so that you can keep growing. And I thought that was kind of a beautiful analogy of like, maybe I just need some clouds right now. And I just need clouds more than often right now because I should be growing. And I just need that water. So maybe that's why. I don't know.
Okay. You sort of touched on your training, and I guess you've been doing what you are able to do. What has that looked like? Has it just been very low intensity, high volume? Is that largely what you focused on?
So for about 1 month in August, um, I tried. So like I was getting dizzy and lightheaded a lot. Um, and I'm not really sure why. My iron was kind of low, so I did start taking an iron supplement and eating a lot more red meat when I could. But that I don't actually think that was it. I'm not really sure, but as soon as I got past that phase of like passing out, um, which could have been related to iron or ferritin, but I'm not sure. I uh, I tried to do higher volume and any intensity I could, and I got my volume back up to like maybe 14, 15 hours a week, which is a little less than normal for me when I'm training full on, but it was enough. But that only lasted for 3 or 4 weeks, actually more like 2 weeks before my throat started closing off again. And so the 2 weeks before Amsterdam, I think I trained like 6 or 7 hours a week at lower intensities. And like the weeks before that, maybe like 9 or 10. So compared to the other guys in the Elite 15, especially when you factor in like all of that was low intensity. Um, to put it this way, I have never, there's a software I use that tracks like fitness and it takes your like your heart rate zones and your power zones and everything and the duration of time you spend in those, and calculates it to like how much your body can handle in the acute future, but also long term future, and gives you like a projection. I use Training Peaks, it works amazing. I have never seen my fitness load this low in my entire life. I've never seen the number because it gives you like a fitness number. I've also never seen it this low. Like before Amsterdam is the lowest it's ever been in my whole life.
Wow.
So that's why like literally it doesn't make sense. Um,
Has it made you? Maybe it's just too early to say because like you've had this one great race, but has it made you rethink training at all? Like let's say like you are perfectly fit and healthy. Do you feel like maybe it's made you think, well, maybe I should be doing more low intensity? Maybe I don't need to do as much work as I was doing or anything like that. Like has it made you think about that at all?
yes, I'm a very open-minded person, or at least I really strive to be. So I have thought a lot about that. Um, but it's still so I've seen a lot of athletes do that. But typically, if you do more low intensity, you got to bump up the volume, or eventually you just degrade and and you get way slower. Um, and so I honestly don't believe that that's the answer for me at all. I really think, to be completely honest, I think it was God showing me that maybe it's not time to hang up the hat yet. Maybe it's time to just like trust that
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do what I can do and I'm going to train the best way I know how, and I'm just going to trust him for the rest. Um, I honestly think that has a large part to do with it. And then two, like I the biggest thing that it's really made me question, and I've also been reading a book called Breathe. Um, it's really made me question like how much CO2 I really need to breathe off, and if breathing off CO2 is really that important. And then also, if you mouth breathe, a large like I think it's somewhere close to 80% of the oxygen you intake doesn't actually get utilized. And so if I can, like, I'm working on a lot of really weird and different breathing techniques. And I've always been the guy who's like, nasal breathing is kind of hard for me because I always seem to have a little bit of flow through my nose, or like nasal drainage, just a little bit. And so usually I'm like, well, if I'm at an upper intensity, why would I try and nasal breathe? But now, especially learning that the utilization of the oxygen that I breathe through my nose, because it's more humidified and warmer, can actually give me a higher percentage of usage. Now I'm trying to work on different breathing techniques to increase the percentage that I do get in to be used. So then maybe I can offset my trachea being a little closed, because like say it's 20% smaller. Well, if I can utilize 20% more oxygen by breathing a certain way and like holding it in for longer instead of breathing it out so quickly, um, maybe just maybe I can compete close to the level that I used to. And then the other biggest thing that I've decided, like at least for the next couple months, because I'm racing, like I'm gonna do what I can to race. I'm gonna figure this out. I've basically told myself, like, I've told myself my whole life, I'm superhuman on race day. Like things that I can't do in training, I always have been able to do on race day. So why is this any different? Like I'm just gonna trust that if God wants me to have a good race, He's gonna make it happen. If He doesn't, then I wasn't supposed to have one, and that's His deal. But my work is gonna be there regardless. And and so honestly, I'm just to the point where I'm like, how important is it really to breathe and to feel like I'm getting enough oxygen? So now I'm training in a way where I'm trying to be more comfortable with the feeling of suffocation. Um, so like I'm purposefully, even on my easy runs, I'm breathing at way too slow of a respiratory rate, and I'm trying to like hold it in longer to maybe increase the oxygen or the amount of saturation that like gets in to my
Mm-hmm.
lungs and like works its way into my bloodstream. That's kind of how I'm thinking about it. And it feels like I'm not getting enough, and it's like really hard to do because you feel like you're suffocating, but I already feel like that anyway, so I might as well practice. And so I'm kind of trying to get more comfortable with the feeling of suffocating. uh, so then in a race, if I have a good day, or like in training, if I have a good day, I'll just run that much faster because it'll feel like magic again. That's honestly what I've been telling myself for a few months, is like, if I can train this way, or if I can train when I'm not getting enough oxygen, if I ever like get a day, or if I ever actually figure out what's going on, like it's game over. Like I'll be able to run so much faster and handle so much more, because not only will I feel amazing, but like my body's going to be used to less. So I'm just trying to convince my mind of that, and continually like writing it into my programming, because like our cells are always listening. So the two big things for me are like, Rylan, you've always been superhuman on race day, so just keep believing that. And then two, like if I can be comfortable with less oxygen, just imagine how dangerous I'll be when I have more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm convincing myself that like that will happen sometime in the future. Like one of these days, I'm going to be back to normal. Like I want to believe that if that's God's will, it'll happen. If it's not, then at least I tried. That's all I got.
Okay. All right. Uh, with the breathing thing, like we don't have to get into all the exercises and stuff like that, but like you mentioned, like nasal breathing, you would still intend on race day during a race to breathe with your mouth, like as normal as possible, would you? But and it's more like during the training sessions that you're more focused on the nasal side of things, or would you change your breathing during a race as well?
No, actually, I did change it during the race a couple times in Amsterdam as well. So if I don't know if the live stream ever caught me doing it, but someone might have noticed like I do this thing called the Alobi breathing technique that I was shown when I went to the hospital in Denver. I honestly can't decide if it works. If you have vocal cord dysfunction, it is supposed to work. And I don't know if the podcast has video normally, like if people watching this can actually see what I'm doing, but basically you suck your lower lip up to the top teeth like that, and it makes you look like Bugs Bunny a little bit. And then you hold suction for a split second, or when you're practicing, you want to hold for longer. And then you basically allow it to release and bring your jaw down. So there's like an influx of air. And if you have vocal cord dysfunction, it's supposed to like pop your vocal cords open. So if you're someone who's listening to the podcast and you're like, you have a weird breathing problem, try doing this thing where like basically, I'll do it on video in a second, but basically you're just like suctioning your bottom lip to the top teeth, and you're holding suction for 1 to 2 seconds, and then release it and bring your jaw down. And they call it like a Vader breath. Like you go kind of like a Darth Vader in breath, and it's supposed to pop your vocal cords open. So I did that during Amsterdam, and it looks kind of like when you're doing it fast, it looks like this. So in Amsterdam, whenever I felt like I couldn't breathe well, I would pop a few of those. And I just tried to like do one every 10 breaths or so. And I honestly don't know if it helps because I don't think I have vocal cord dysfunction. I think it's something else, but if there's a chance, I'm going to do it. So, and then also I'm trying to breathe through my nose more if possible. But when you're at a really high intensity, like you have to use your mouth too. So I'm just trying to like delay that as long as possible.
Okay. For people listening, we do put this on YouTube as well. So if anyone wants to see what Rylan just did, they can go and watch that on our YouTube channel. Another thing I just wanted to ask you about during the race was that I think it was maybe on that second run you had a drink or a gel. What was it and what was in it?
It's a high carb drink mix. So it's just like a mixture of like maltodextrin and fructose, and then some sodium and potassium. And I'm actually working on developing it's in production right now. Like it's in the production phase. It's like a drink mix that is really simple, and very little ingredients. And it's just targeted at keeping you going from like hours, from about 30 to 40 minutes in up to probably 5 hours. And then you can use it more after that. But once I get past like 3 or 4 hours, I like to have more solid food. So it's kind of like the other high carb drink mixes that you see on the market, but stripped down of a lot of the BS that I don't really think works. Because the big ones that you want to see are either maltodextrin or something that's like dextrose based, and then something that's fructose based, in like a 2-to-1 ratio, and then a lot of sodium, and then like a fourth of the potassium. Because we have drinks like what's that one YouTuber guy and Instagram guy? He has like Prime or something.
Oh,
His
yeah.
drink has way more sodium way more potassium or just as much potassium as sodium. And that like actually typically pulls it out of your cell versus putting hydration into your cell. That's why you want like way more sodium than potassium. And so like basically I have a mix of that, it's produced, or like it's in the final stages, and we're just trying to like get the batches out so that we can start producing it and selling it. So yeah, it's something like that in the bottle.
But you think that presumably you think it's worthwhile for someone like you who's going around in 55 minutes. There's a benefit to taking some kind of carb and electrolyte during the race. Like it's not just something you can like fill up on before the race and then that will last you for the 60-minute duration of the race. You feel like there's something worth doing intra race as well?
Yes, Mainly, I hardly had any mixed in there. Like I had it diluted really light. I probably only had maybe 100 calories worth in there.
Okay.
So maybe 30 grams of carbs, not much. Because typically, if I'm doing an actual endurance event that's up to an hour and a half to 2 hours
Mm,
or more, I would shoot for like 90 to 100 grams of carbs per hour. So mainly it was actually for the hydration portion because when you're inside just sweating like that, Amsterdam was cool, but
mm,
I didn't know how much it was going to heat up. And that's the big one because I have cramped on wall balls before, or I should say the lunges, and then I cramped on wall balls. And I never want to experience that again. And then also, I never stop at the water table. You'll see me jogging, just taking a sip, and other people are stopping at the water table. And I don't want to do that. It wastes seconds. And HYROX is a flat race, so it's not like the extra weight is really affecting you. Like I'm carrying maybe 400 grams, probably more like 250 to 300 grams on the back of my butt. Um, and I don't feel it at all. So if it was an uphill race, maybe I would like weigh it out more. But yeah, for something like HYROX, I think it's just like benefit and really no cost.
okay. Okay. Um, when you were on here last, we spoke a little bit about drug testing, and Hyrox hadn't put any drug testing policies in place at that point in time. And I think a lot of what you came out and posted and said about almost inspired them, I think, to do something about it. Are you reasonably happy with the direction that they're taking at the moment and what they've done so far?
Yeah, it's actually I used to say just because I think HYROX is one of those types of racing that can really be affected by doping. Um, I I used to say like if they don't fix this soon, I'll probably be done racing HYROX. Because I don't like I grew up in cycling for a little bit, and the post Lance era of cycling is so sad, especially in the US. Like if you're fast on a bike, people joke with you that you dope. It's so sad. Like the road world champion, he TJ, like the guy who, he's the guy who won the the Tour de France, sorry. Um, he's such a cool guy, it seems like, but he's even said like every time he wins a race or something, it's like people think he's doping, and that's because of what Lance did and the guys of that era. But like, I don't want to see that happen to HYROX because HYROX is exploding. And so I was so happy to see that they are at least implementing drug testing and also that they said it's illegal. Because my big issue was like, well, if it's not illegal, it's legal. And
Mm-hmm.
so if it's not in your rule book saying that it's not cool to do, I don't know what other guys are doing it. I know a lot of the Elite 15 guys, and I don't think that they are because they're just like really good individuals. But there's always the possibility or like the pressure now because HYROX is getting more notoriety. And whenever you have more money flowing into the sport, you have more pressure for the athletes. And that's one of the things that I really actually struggled with Lance Armstrong is like he would pressure his teammates to cheat so that overall they would be faster. Um, or at least that's what's been said. And so I didn't want to see that happen to HYROX, where essentially you have the top guys and they're telling like the younger generation, like maybe they have a son that's growing up in the sport, or maybe like they're a team manager now and they're telling people on the team, like, hey, this is what it takes to be at the top. Because that's what happened to cycling. And if it's not illegal, then it's just going to be like a common thing. And so when HYROX said, like, hey, this is illegal, we're going to do drug testing, I was like, cool, sweet. Now I'm good with HYROX. I'm happy to race. So I'm really stoked that they did that.
Okay. All right. Good. Um, one question, just while I think of it, you mentioned earlier that before you got ill, you'd done a 5 by mile PR.
Yeah.
What were your times? What?
I was 5:03 like 503, 502, 501, and then I think I did two 505s after that with it, but I wasn't walking rest. I was doing 2 minutes jog at 8 minute pace in
Okay.
between. So it was, and I was also like 84 kilos at the time, 84 to 85. So I was a little bigger than I am now, and I was much faster than I am now. Um, I like, for instance, I did 4 by 1 mile yesterday, and this is the probably one of the better workouts I've had since this happened, and I still can barely crack 5:30. So I'm almost 30 seconds slower per rep.
Okay.
Um, but that's better than 1 minute slower per rep, which a couple months ago, I
Yeah.
was a minute to a minute 30 slower per rep. So I'm thankful to be like starting to feel a little bit fast some
Mo-
days.
moving in the right direction.
I think so.
And it shows, like, you just did a 55-minute HYROX in Amsterdam. If you can get back to that previous pace, like what's possible in HYROX is huge, right?
Yeah, I really think like, I don't know if like 50 minutes would be insane, but with the new sleds, I think it's very possible. Like, I feel like if I was at 100% and I was like, if I was that shape that I was in March, I think that would put me, if I had those same sleds, probably into like 52 territory. But I honestly, I don't know if I'll ever be there again. Like, this could be something that I never really get over and I just manage it. Or it could be something that goes away completely. And if I'm young enough still and like, still racing HYROX, then maybe it's a possibility. But I do think for sure 52 minutes is very possible. Very, very possible.
Okay. All right. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for this. Good luck with everything going forward. I hope you get some more answers and continue to get better. You're certainly inspiring. Like your story is amazing, and what you did in Amsterdam is amazing. So yeah, hopefully it continues to go in the right direction for you. Are you planning on doing the other majors in HYROX?
Now I am. Yesterday, I did that workout and I was like, okay, 25 seconds slower rep, like that's X percentage less and blah blah blah. And then I was like, you know what? Screw it. Like, maybe I'll have another good day on a race. I'm going to Hong Kong. So, but on the way to Hong Kong, Spartan Race is making a dumb move, in my opinion, and moving 2025 Trifecta World Championships, which is my favorite race ever. They're moving it to the US in West Virginia instead of Sparta, Greece. And I'm like, it's Spartan Race. You got to keep it in Sparta, Greece. Like, what are you guys doing? But that's what they decided. So I was like, you know what? 2024 might be the last year that they do this race in my favorite place. And so I figured on the way to Hong Kong, I'll take a quick stop in Athens, drive to Sparta, hit that race, and then I'll go to Hong Kong.
Okay.
So
All
that's the
right.
game plan.
Awesome. Okay. Nice. All right. If people want to follow you, find out more about you, you're doing coaching as well, are you?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I've been coaching for a few years now. Yeah, if they're interested, Instagram's a really good way to reach out to me. Typically, it takes me a few days to get back to people in DMs, but it's just Rylan Schadegg. That's all it is. And then if they're looking for a more direct path for coaching, in my link tree in my Instagram, I have a coaching application, and they can fill that out and like what their goals are, what they're interested in, and what they struggle with, and et cetera. And that way I can get an idea if I'm a good fit for them, because I'm definitely not the kind of coach that's just believes I can help everybody. I pick my battles. Like, if there's someone I really think I can help, I'll take them as a client. But if it's someone who either like isn't as motivated, or like I don't know where to start with, like it's not my specialty, then typically I'll recommend that they find someone who's like better suited to them, because different coaches work for different people better than others. So I always think that's important.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, awesome. Thanks for this. And I'll see you in Hong Kong.
All right, sweet. Looking forward to it, man.